Okay, so I need to know if anybody else has had this experience before, but picture this. It's 5:30 p.m., your baby or your toddler is hungry, you're looking in the fridge and you cannot find anything to feed them, and you just bought groceries. Because this was basically me every single day. I feel like before having a baby, nobody actually prepares you for the relentless feeding schedule that you have to adhere to. I'm talking breakfast, lunch, and dinner, plus 2 snacks a day, every single day, for a very long time. Years, some would say. After a while, I realized that I started to feed my baby safe foods instead of branching out. So I would feed her yogurt, pasta, eggs, bread, you know, the usual, and then just repeat forever and ever. So after researching a few different baby food delivery services, I came upon Little Spoon and I tried it out. And I've been using it consistently for a little over 6 months now. So I do have some thoughts to share. I wanted to write a real review from an actual mom that uses Little Spoon and has been using it for a while, because I feel like most reviews online can feel sponsored or just like somebody used it maybe once or twice and then just called it a day. So what is Little Spoon? Well, if you have not been targeted by the ads for Little Spoon all over social media, Little Spoon is a baby and toddler food delivery service. They have baby purees called blends, finger foods called Biteables, toddler meals called plates, smoothies and snacks, and all that jazz. But what actually interested me about Little Spoon is that it feels like it grows with your kid. You know, it's not just baby food jars forever. You can start with the purees when you have your baby, and you can move on to finger foods and then end up at toddler plates. This to me makes it feel more practical long term. So let's talk about ordering and cost. Ordering was actually incredibly easy and kind of fun because you get to just go through all of the meals and pick out what you want, and it feels a lot like shopping. Everything on the website is organized by age or feeding stage, so it's really easy for you to kind of navigate where you should be looking based on where your current baby is at. I appreciate this because once you become a parent, you realize that there's like, I don't know, 1,400 different feeding stages, so it's nice to know where you should be. Currently, I get deliveries every 2 weeks, so twice a month. I will usually order 8 toddler plates, sometimes a few Biteables, smoothies, and some purees as well. And for me, it's usually around $72 plus shipping. And I know, that sounds like a lot, but I think it's a very convenient amount, and I don't actually use it for every single meal. I use Little Spoon as support for those weeks where I am just feeling extra tired, we're too busy to make food, and I'm just running out of ideas, and I want to see if I can branch my daughter out into having something different. So it's nice to have these options. Okay, packaging. This is where I have a little bit of mixed feelings. So when you get your box, the packaging is fantastic. I mean, there's the box right there. But it is a substantial box, and it might even get bigger depending on how much food you order. I only get the 8 plates and then a few extras, so these are the size of those boxes. I don't know if I ordered more food, if the boxes would be bigger or if they would be smaller with smaller food. But these boxes are very well insulated. So we'll have a wall of insulation and cold packs on the inside to keep the food cold because, you know, baby food. So my issue with the boxes is that it is a lot. It's kind of a pain to dispose of everything. The boxes are big and they need to be broken down. And the insulation, I'm not really sure how to dispose of in a way that is not inconvenient. And the cold packs are kind of a pain too. But this isn't abnormal for food delivery services. In fact, this is very appreciated because you know that your food is coming very cold and very fresh. But it doesn't mean that it's not annoying. Again, every single food delivery service that I have ever used always has this kind of insulation. But I do think it's worth mentioning if you're somebody who doesn't like to deal with a lot of waste. Also, I want to note that the plates that the food actually come in are recyclable, and that is awesome. So let's talk about the blends and purees, because this is where I started when I started using Little Spoon, because my daughter was not even a year old yet. Surprisingly, the blends were a really big surprise for me because they actually taste good. And I know that seems silly because, you know, it's just baby puree jars, like what's the big difference? But I do truly believe that there's a difference between the store-bought purees and the Little Spoon purees. And for me, the difference is that the vegetable purees actually taste like vegetables, and the fruit purees actually taste like the fruit and not overly sugary and definitely not watered down. The texture also really reminds me of homemade purees, and I think my daughter really enjoyed that compared to the watery kind of purees from the grocery store. My daughter's favorite puree was the butternut squash blend, and she loved it so much that I ended up adding it to different things instead of just giving it to her with a spoon. So if you're trying to figure out what to do with your purees, you can add them in anything really. I would add the butternut squash to her pasta, and it'd be like a hidden veggie sauce that she really enjoyed. I also have added it to yogurt and oatmeal, and I've made little smoothies for her using the purees. And lastly, I really enjoyed mixing purees together to create a new flavor for my daughter while she was discovering her palate. Shortly after that, we transitioned into the Biteables. This was a just lifesaver for me because transitioning to finger foods really stressed me out. I mean, I was Googling how small should strawberries be cut. I was looking up all of the different graphics on the sizes of vegetables and the sizes of foods that, you know, were maybe a little harder, and could she even eat those? Can she eat meat? You know, I was just totally spiraling, trying to figure out how to cut the food, make sure she didn't choke and, you know, die. I truly underestimated how anxiety-inducing this phase was going to be. So what really helped me with Biteables is that the food is cut to be developmentally appropriate. So I didn't have to do any thinking, really. Although I will say, I may have continued to cut a few of the things because of my own anxiety. I was just really convinced that she would still choke on it, even though it was perfectly cut. But once I really got used to realizing that she's pretty good at eating and she's not going to choke as commonly as I thought, I was able to finally sit back and enjoy and watch my daughter learn how to eat, because I didn't have to worry about cutting the food. It was just all done for me, and I really loved that. Plus, it helped me learn what kind of foods to feed her. When she started eating solids, I had no idea what to make for dinner. It's like I suddenly forgot what we eat. So it was very convenient to get some ideas and use the meals that I received as inspiration for meals that I could create on my own. So 3 of my daughter's top favorite Biteable meals was the mini cheesy pasta, the butternut squash ravioli, which, I mean, are we surprised? And the pesto eggs, which I was the most surprised about because eggs is already like a hit or miss with my daughter, but pesto is a very strong flavor, and I was very surprised to learn that she liked it. And if I'm being totally honest, I don't think I would have ever given her pesto eggs before. So it was nice to see, like, wow, okay, my daughter likes this, and maybe I can make some myself. Now that my daughter is older and very in her toddler phase, we have transitioned into the toddler plates. I find these to be very realistic, especially for the way toddlers eat. The food that they serve is very recognizable. You know, you'll find ravioli, chicken nuggets, pancake puffs, and even pot stickers. They're balanced in a way that feels intentional. I've noticed that there's usually a veggie, a protein, and a carb, which is what you really want them to have. It's just a nice balanced plate. So it really feels less like a frozen kids meal and more like somebody has designed this with toddlers in mind. Also, somehow Little Spoon has turned my daughter into a zucchini addict. Seriously, I need to figure out what they do to their zucchini, because my daughter absolutely loves to eat the teeny tiny cut zucchinis, and I would love to buy just big bowls of zucchini for her. Okay, this next note that I want to make is a very specific situation, but I do think it could help other people, so I'm going to mention it. The plates and the Biteables for Little Spoon usually are recommended to be microwaved. However, I do not own a microwave. And it is not because I don't want to own a microwave, we just don't have space for a microwave. So with that being said, I have had to steam the plates on the stove instead of putting them in a microwave or even the oven. I actually did end up trying the oven once and it dried out the food significantly and it was pretty much inedible. And that's not Little Spoon's fault. Once I started steaming it on the stove, which basically means I used my saucepan and a steamer attachment. So I'd put water underneath and then the plate on top and it would just steam the food so it would heat it up and keep it really nice and moist, which was great. So if for some reason you are also somebody who does not own a microwave, you can still use a service like Little Spoon. There's ways you can get around it. So what did I like most about Little Spoon? What I liked most about Little Spoon was the relief of decision fatigue. Because honestly, feeding toddlers is very high pressure and stressful and confusing and chaotic. You are constantly thinking, are they getting enough protein? Are they getting enough iron? Are they getting enough calcium? Are they eating enough fiber? Is there enough variety? Are they going to become picky eaters? Have they consumed enough food? Have they consumed too much food? It just doesn't end. However, Little Spoon did not magically solve our feeding struggles, but it did make me feel like I had a little bit of support and a backup on those days that I just had no idea what to make her. But let's talk about the downsides. One, obviously the packaging is a con for me. I do think it is a lot, but again, not uncommon. Two, it is expensive if you compare it to just making the food at home. If you tally up, the convenience and the labor and the mental exhaustion of making food for your toddler, it could be worth it for most people. One con that I really do want to note is that I've noticed in the past few months that there hasn't really been any rotation on the meals that are offered. And I'm sure this is because toddlers can appreciate repetition, but the problem lies when your toddler is a little bit picky and you start to run out of options to choose from when you're looking at the list of meals. So if my daughter's not liking 4 out of the 10 meals, well, now I've only got 6 to choose from. So it would be nice to see a little bit more rotation. Overall, I do believe I enjoy Little Spoon way more than I expected to. Do I think every parent needs a food delivery service? No, I don't. But if you're like me and you just you work and you have to watch your kid all day and run a bunch of errands and you're just juggling 9 million things, and you also have to think about what to buy for groceries and what to make your toddler while they're screaming at the bottom of your feet. I think it's definitely worth it. And also, I feel like modern parenting really adds so much pressure on us to make everything perfectly, especially from scratch, and it's just nice to have an option that can relieve that stress, even if it's just for one meal. Some nights I cook, some nights we eat leftovers, and some nights I'm heating up a Little Spoon over the stove. And that balance has worked really well for us, and I could see how it could work for many families. So if you're in the thick of feeding your baby or transitioning into toddlerhood and you're so overwhelmed and stressed about what you're going to do or what you're currently doing, I hope that this genuinely gives you an idea of what it could be like if you used Little Spoon. And if you've tried it already, I would love to know what your story is about using Little Spoon and what you think about it. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you in the next one.